Hello to my fire signs Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. Welcome to the Virgo full moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising signs listed below. Hello Aries Rising, welcome to your reading for the Virgo full moon happening on February the 24th at 11:31 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So a little bit before midnight, the moon will be bright and huge and full. So we're going to speak a lot about diligence, about repetition, about commitment in this reading, Aries Rising. Virgo would want it that way, and so would the sixth house. The sixth house is where we work, where we act in service. So think about September 15th of last year. If you can, if you've been with me for that long, we would have been sowing some seeds in this environment for you. We would have been making plans and working towards them. So now at the full moon, there's a spotlight, there's an illumination in this area of your life. And so there might be some emotions that swell to the surface, as there normally does with a full moon. It's how we work with those emotions and put them to effect that will help your sixth house. It's okay if the hallmarks or the milestones are a little bit out of reach as to maybe how you would have liked them to be. That's okay, because we can look at the progress so far. There's something about progress in the sixth house that's really satisfying, I think. If we look to the tarot card for the moon at this lunation at 5 degrees of Virgo, it will be the 8 of Pentacles. So you can see this individual here is committed. They're committed to their work. They're committed to their practice. They're showing up day in, day out. Even if they don't get it right, they're in the workshop. They're working towards it. So hopefully you can identify with that at this time. Maybe there's something that you have been working on so diligently that is finally maybe ready to present. Or there's a certain aspect around your idea of service that is illuminated at this time, where you're sort of like, this is where I can vest my energy moving forward. Because the moon is in Virgo, that means that we're in Pisces season, so welcome. The sun is in Pisces at 5 degrees. The sun and Saturn, who is a very strict container and boundary, and now also Mercury too, which is information, are at the 8 of Cups. Some folks look at this card and they see abandonment. Absolutely. Some folks look at this card and see someone going out and bringing something back, finding that missing cup to complete the collection. I like that definition of this card. If you think about the way that this card was drawn and the concept of it, it actually represents Saturn in Pisces and what that can feel like sometimes. We know that Pisces season is magical. We know that our Piscean friends are abundant in their empathy and able to move through dimensions and worlds and think in line with you, say what you were about to say, all of that stuff. Pisces is your 12th house, your unconscious knowing, your ability to roam and journey in your dreams. So maybe there's been some messaging there for you, Aries Rising. Maybe there's been things that have been occurring to you in your rest state that you can't ignore anymore, that you kind of feel it's the time to activate. And you can do that with the help of Saturn. You can actually look at this card, and rather than feel it being a sense of abandonment or running away, it's actually more to do with a mission. It's actually a hike. Maybe they're walking into that mountain at the back there. Maybe they're about to traverse that mountainside to find that missing cup and to bring it back. When I say that, find that missing cup and bring it back, what does that mean to you? Is there something lacking in your life at the moment, Aries Rising? Is there something that you can think of when I say that you're like, oh, yeah, I need to go and get that. I need to rectify this thing. That's what the sun's encouraging you to do. That's what Saturn in Pisces has been encouraging you to do for about a year now, maybe a bit more. They'll be there for a while too, so we're getting used to this feeling. Saturn is at 9 degrees of Pisces right now, so there's still 20 more degrees to get through. So hopefully this quest is something that you feel ready for. In the house of diligence and repetition and mastery of service, it's the Hermit that speaks to Virgo as a whole. The Hermit is someone that has actually needed to separate themselves from social responsibilities, maybe places where they used to be really available. They've had to take this time to learn. The Hermit holds the star in their lantern. So we know that Pluto is in Aquarius. We know that Mars and Venus have just been initiated into Aquarius via Pluto. 2 days before this full moon, they conjoined, they came together. So maybe on the 22nd, there might be something in your communal circles and your friendships or otherwise that feels like bonding. But you're coming back together with folks in a way that's very different to the way that things used to be, because Pluto won't have things as they were. Pluto destroys that which is unstable. Pluto reveals things that are hidden and brings them to the surface once and for all. Mars and Venus in conjunction feels really passionate to me. There's some passion running through your 11th house of your sense of humanity, your community groups. Who haven't you spoken to in a long time that you feel that you really owe a conversation? That would be something that I'd encourage at this full moon as we're approaching this service, this diligence, this practice. Virgo loves to practice, to finesse. Sounds pretty strict, doesn't it, for a Pisces season? Normally we'd sort of want to like trip out and go there, you know, get lost. But Saturn is sort of holding this container for some reason. It's not always oppression that you feel with Saturn's presence. It can be a boundary, a healthy one that we need in order to get things done. When looking at a full moon in Virgo with the container emanating with the sun, it's this card. Practice, diligence, repetition. Probably words that sometimes rub you up the wrong way, Aries Rising. You prefer to get to the destination rather than take the journey sometimes. Or sometimes you get distracted in the journey, you know. But we're working towards something here, something really profound. On the 5th of March, so a week after this full moon, in the lead up to the Pisces new moon, of which there'll be another horoscope, so we'll talk about this again. But Chiron in your first house, the wounded healer, will be conjunct the dragon. So there'll be an insatiability to get to the root cause of some of this wounding about yourself, Aries Rising. Some of this stuff that is buried, that will be coming up to say hello. Finally, opportunity to heal. You've maybe been on that path for a while now, and you can sort of anticipate this coming. You know, that's helpful. That's a real opportunity to grow. So I support you in that, and I support you in whatever emotions come up at this full moon in Virgo. Full moons, they, without fail, tend to move us, don't they? They do something to us. Some versions of astrology ascribe the way that the past can have us act in the present. If the moon was a part of us at some point in the galaxy's history, it's an emblem of the past. Somehow, it's also an emblem of how we've learned to emotionally regulate too. And if we're having trouble, then a full moon will encourage a bit of flow in that world. So if you've been needing to get a bit emotional, you've got permission once a month. When it comes to this Virgo full moon, it's a spotlight on your precision, on what you've been working towards. So congratulations. Let's get you some tarot and see what else comes out. This one. There's going to be some pressure with Jupiter as Mars and Venus move along in Aquarius. We know that a square from Jupiter is enthusiasm, sometimes a lot of a good thing. A square between Venus and Jupiter just feels really nice. So figure out this communal atmosphere. Figure out who has leads for you to better resource yourself, who might have some advice or an opportunity for you to continue doing this work with your resources, your Taurus house. Jupiter is giving you some encouragement and has been for a while in that place. So use it as best you can. You nearly got the same cards as Aquarius. You got the High Priestess right in the center. The one that knows everything. The one that has every answer to every question that you could possibly want to know about. The Fool meets the High Priestess second, after the glamour of the magician, after the excitement that magic can bring us. Then they meet the High Priestess, and they're in the mood for some magic. They're in the mood for some further joy, some further mystery. They get mystery from the High Priestess, but it's silent. Everything, anything you could possibly want to know. The outcome to this, the outcome to that. But she won't tell you. She knows that it's your mission to learn it. She's with you all the way, though, Aries Rising. You can call on the High Priestess whenever you need to. I do sometimes when I'm feeling really anxious. I've been able to feel the presence of the High Priestess nearby, and I've been able to ask her to comfort me through this anxiety and to pick apart the problem, to lay it before me, but to take that moment in breath before we even begin to try and strategize. You're moving from what looks like a really healthy relationship, Aries Rising. I see that there's someone that has been able to provide you with guidance emotionally. There's someone that's been able to talk to you about how you've been feeling, to listen to you, to provide you with encouragement and with empathy and kindness. And they've been really a strong support in your world at this time. But what the High Priestess is maybe getting at is that you've got the stuff now. You don't need to rely so heavily on this person anymore. Not that they're going away. They're not going anywhere. They'll be with you too. But you've got the strength now to stand on your own 2 feet, and you're moving towards the match. You're moving towards that spark that is going to reignite some of this dead energy, some of this magic that never got to express itself. All of this finessing in Virgo since September, but your whole life, all of this study, practice, diligence, this full moon is showing you and handing you the key, the match to start. So take the offer. Be grateful for all of the support that has led you to this point. Be grateful for that. We must always remember to thank those that have protected us during difficult times. And now, stand up. I imagine that this feeling on the 5th of March when the dragon is conjunct Chiron, there's such an opportunity to heal. And I think that you're really going to feel it quite personally, Aries Rising. So go with that. Look forward to that. When you're in the rehearsal room or when you're in the studio, the mode of like being repetitious in your action, getting a bit friggin' fed up by it, maybe, a bit frustrated. Check in with the High Priestess. Let her remind you of the match, the Ace of Wands, the offer to start. That's your reading, honey. Much love to you. If you're still here with me, Aries Rising, pop evil eye in the comments. That would be awesome. I can read your birth chart. I'll draw you one up. They look like that, and you can make an appointment with me at umaruby.com. If I've not read for you before, pick the spirit reading. If I have read for you before and you'd like something else, pick a magic, truth, femme, love, or growth reading. And we can go through whatever question you might have with the cards, with the astrology. We'll use both. If you'd like to support my work financially, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month. If you'd like to put some money in the tip jar, you're most welcome to as well. I'll be with you again for another horoscope in 2 weeks to talk about the new moon in Pisces. We'll talk about your unconscious awareness. We'll talk about the beautiful bounty of possibility in your magic at that time. So this feels like preparation for that too. The lived experience, the lived reality, flesh and blood, can sometimes be a bit exhausting. And that's why we balance that out sometimes with a bit of magic in the 12th. So until then, Aries Rising, I love you. Hello Leo Rising, welcome to your reading for the Virgo full moon happening on February the 24th at 11:31 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me, so a midnight moon. It'll be a really beautiful time to get out there, stand underneath it and bathe in the glow. Allow some of this stuck emotion to move around a little bit. You can feel, sometimes there's that feeling before a storm, you know, when it kind of feels so pressurized. That can happen with a full moon sometimes. You're sort of like, oh, what is this stuck in my craw? Is it going to move? Can I get this thing to budge? Oh, it's a full moon. Oh, my God. Let it out. Let it flow, babe. Let it flow. There's been so much hard work that you've been doing lately that must feel pretty pressurized. There might be a feeling of exhaustion for you as well. If we're thinking about, first of all, I'm going to speak just a little bit about your 7th house because I'd love to get your feedback on how this has all been showing up for you. Before we get to the 24th, let's focus on the 22nd of February. This is when Mars and Venus will conjoin in Aquarius in your 7th house of your relationships. It's specific to your birth chart, Leo Rising. It speaks a lot about unity. It speaks a lot about coming together with someone as the person that you are now, as opposed to who it was before. We know that Venus and Mars had to pass by an initiation with Pluto into Aquarius. And on the 22nd, they come together as the folks that they are now. It's always really passionate with a Mars-Venus conjunction. It feels really vital, really juicy. It feels really kind of hot. These planets aren't the same. They've had to pass through Pluto. They've had to sort of destroy everything about them that was not working. They've burnt off their old skins. They're kind of new. These are seeds of grand new potential for you, Leo Rising, in the way that you relate to people. It's high time that you relate to people as the person that you are now. Okay? This is an opportunity to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be real. So then 2 days after that, we have a full moon in Virgo. And Virgo for you is your 2nd house of your resources, your coin, your values. So think about September of last year, September the 15th of last year, if you've been with me that long, and we had big chats about sowing seeds of potential in that area of your life. What's happened? What's the progress? You don't have to show me or prove to me any like massive results, but I'm sure that there's been some progress there in the way that you relate to your money, in the way that you value your resources and yourself too. You've got the stuff to stand on your own 2 feet, Leo rising. How has this evolved over time? On the opposite side of the zodiac, we've got the sun in Pisces. We're in Pisces season right now. Pisces season is colored with the energy, the presence of Saturn, which feels like a container. Pisces is normally really intuitive and really expansive, really psychic. For you, this is your 8th house, so it is your ways of connecting with other people, collaborating with them, grieving them when they're gone. There's something really, really vital about your 8th house, with Pisces being so empathetic, so caring, so kind. Saturn is a ringed boundary. Maybe Saturn in Pisces could be a magical boundary around this part of your life. You've maybe had to instill that at this time, Leo rising too, to get the job done. So this moon in Virgo, lighting up your 2nd house of your values, is being informed by Saturn too. Also Mercury is there. There's 3 of them. Mercury, the Sun, and Saturn are all pointed, directed towards the moon. Mercury isn't so comfortable in Pisces. They get things wrong often. They get confused. And so maybe a bit of confusion at this time. That's going to get better as Mercury moves into a conjunction with Saturn, and Saturn sorts them out and is like, right, get out of here. But there may have been some, you're unsure perhaps of how or who you might wish to collaborate with next. There's maybe some really glowing potential that you can feel, but you need something a bit stronger in its evidence in order to commit. All of this energy is casting its light down onto your autonomy. So I want you to celebrate that at this full moon. I want you to feel emotions that are attached with that too. Sometimes after a hard journey in life, when we do reach a point where we're like, oh wow, I'm my own boss, I'm taking care of myself, after a long time of having to rely on other people, or I was having a real difficult moment, and I'm really grateful for that support, and now I stand proud. That's a lovely feeling. It can also bring up some emotions too. Some of those emotions might be fear about losing it again. So just flag that too. If we look at the tarot for the moon, so 5 degrees of Virgo, it's the 8 of Pentacles. And I can see you there working, toiling away, perfecting this thing. So good on you. Congratulations. Virgo is the hermit. That moment in life when we have to step aside. We say, thank you, I can't, to this event, that event, this occasion. We say, thank you, I can't at this time. I'm busy. I'm busy working on my thing. So this is what I kind of want for you to celebrate at this full moon too, Leo rising, the absolute necessity of some time away, some break. We can't, and I know that you want to, can't always be so accessible, so visible, so consumable by others. That's your natural state. You want to be amongst it. You want to sort of be leading by your example, you know, showing everyone how beautiful they are because you're proud enough to claim your own beauty. Sometimes we need to be the hermit. We need to step away, particularly when lining up our resourcefulness, particularly when making sure that we've got enough in storage to continue moving forward. It's a great moment to be responsible for your own welfare, babe. So keep that going and celebrate your wins at this full moon as well. Your 7th house keeps on calling to me. I like it. Jupiter's up in your 10th house where you're most publicly visible. You like it there. Jupiter likes it there too. Jupiter's really optimistic there. Jupiter will be forming square with Mars and with Venus as they move through after their conjunction, after their intimate moment in your 7th house, their tryst. They'll move along and they'll form square with Jupiter independently. A square from Jupiter is so over the top. So there's something about the way that you're relating to people in intimacy and your public facing self, which is getting its own spotlight this month. There's extra emphasis here. Are you wanting to, I don't know if people even do that now. I don't have a Facebook. You know, in the old days, I used to like have a relationship status. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. Forgive me, I'm out of date. But that's an example of like, wow, this fresh new relationship or new vitality that I have in my relationships, I want to sing it from the rafters. That's something that we're kind of working with here as well. I like this balance that we're finding, Leo rising, between your individual worth and your commitment and involvement with other people. It's a nice balance to strike. Always remind you that Leo loves a pride, you know, loves to roll with a group. So that's fine. But just make sure that you're well resourced. Make sure that your autonomy is intact, that you don't lose yourself in the needs of the other. Let's get you some tarot, baby. This one. I imagine that you'd be really good in relationships, Leo rising. I imagine that there'd be a great deal of encouragement that you can provide for those that you love. And I imagine that it's difficult for you to be alone. I imagine that that's something that you've really had to work on. And I imagine that it's vital for you. We're focusing on your autonomy in this reading, I reckon, Leo rising. What looks like the fantasy of emotional release, of perfect relationship, of one meeting the other. Maybe this is what's going on in the bit drunk in the 7th house. There's a certain narrative culturally that we've been fed that is very unusual. Not to say that it doesn't exist, but it's not as usual as we've been told to think. Relationships evolve and they change and they end. And as you move through this life, there's different signposts of kind of where you've been separating your autonomy from the relationship, or where you've been mixing those two into a point where you become codependent with someone, and it's difficult for you to ascertain your own identity again after being so long in this relationship, because you're read and exist as two rather than one. No credits roll in this life. It would be a relief if they did, wouldn't it? Because you'd be like, finally, okay, here we are, great, amazing. And they lived happily ever after. Beautiful. Credits, perfect, beautiful song. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, and there's no blueprint for a perfect relationship. Some of us look, not me, but some people look to their ancestors, their grandparents or their parents, or, you know, there's those relationships in the family that just seem tried and true, you know, they seem, the commitment has been met, you know, they've stuck together through thick and thin, they've learned one another and learned each other's rhythms to find this forevermore kind of flow. It's a beautiful story. It's not usual. And I'm saying this to you to give yourself some space from that feeling of failure. Because what looked like perfection in your mind's eye might still not be present for you yet. And I don't wish for you to feel that you've done something wrong. This is what life is. We learn from every person that we're in a relationship with. We show different sides of ourselves. We better ourselves, better our capacity at relating to other people. We develop our sense of empathy. We develop our sense of investment. We develop our sense of vulnerability too, hopefully. Sometimes folks find that bit a bit tricky. If you're in a relationship and this Venus and Mars conjunction makes you feel like you're a brand new you and the relationship feels really fresh again, then I celebrate that. And I look at this 10 of Cups and I want to switch it around for you so you can enjoy that moment, enjoy that rainbow. For those that it came out upside down for a purpose, I want you to work on your autonomy, to find the Queen of Wands again inside of you, that part of you that is so beautiful and so attractive and so present and so available and willing to mix it up, to get amongst it, to go on dates. Find that the worst feeling is having a desire but being too frightened to pursue that. I know that to be true. Desire is a funny word too. It can lead us to this desperation feeling. But you of all people, Leo rising, know that dates and relationships are one of the sweetest points of life. If you've been holding off from doing that because you've been worried about it going wrong again, or what's the use, or I'm not good enough, this Queen of Wands wants you to step back into your beauty, to use the autonomy that you've been learning. You've been learning to go it alone. You've been propping yourself up. Whatever happened before in relationships is a lesson. You can improve your technique from that. You can be grateful for those past relationships. So, yeah, you are the Queen of Wands, Queen of Fire. You can make magic. I want you to believe that too, Leo rising. That's your reading. Thanks for sticking around. If you're still here with me, throw an evil eye in the comments. That would be really lovely. I was trying to think of what to put in there for Virgo. I thought, a lantern, that could be cute. But I love the image of the evil eye. It just makes me feel really protected, really safe. I want that for you too, Leo rising. If you'd like me to read your birth chart and I've not met you before, head to umaruby.com, make an appointment, and I'll draw you one and read it to you via the magic of Zoom. If I have read for you before and you'd like to see me again, go to the Back for More tab and you can choose a magic, truth, love, growth, or femme reading. You can support my work at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month, or you can throw some money in the tip jar, or both. And I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about the Pisces new moon on the 10th of March. So we'll be doing lots of deep magical work at that time with that container, that magical boundary that Saturn is encouraging. So until then, Leo rising, much love. Hello, Sagittarius Rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the Virgo full moon happening on February the 24th at 11:31 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. So right before midnight, we'll get to experience the beauty and the release, hopefully, of this beautiful Virgo moon. Now, on your birth chart, Sagittarius Rising, we're looking at some place that's pretty public. It's your most front-facing, visible house of perception, your career if you have one, but where you're perceived might be a great definition for the 10th house. I'd like for you to think back to the 15th of September of last year. If you've been with me that long, we had some chats about what we could sow there, how we could look forward to some growth as far as what you wish to be known for in this life, what kind of career path you could take, or what you've been urging yourself towards. So if you keep a diary, it'd be really awesome to just go back to September and read what was going on back then, look at the results, look at what you can sort of chalk up and consider it to be a success, and also just kind of register your progress at this time. You don't have to sort of have aced the test or be celebrating right now. If you are, though, that's amazing. But it might just be a sense of like perception, just sort of like, I am working towards this. This pathway feels really fruitful to me right now. I want to be moving in these circles, in this area of my life. So a full moon is always going to bring up some emotional movement for us. We can be grateful for the moon for that. Sometimes we sort of press things down and not sort of look at them or register them, but they don't really go anywhere. They wait for us. And a full moon will always encourage a bit of movement on that front. Looking at the astrology, the sun is in company at this full moon, flanked either side by Mercury, who brings information, not so comfortable in Pisces. They can often get confused. And also Saturn, who's been there for about a year or so now and will be there for a little while yet. Saturn is at 9 degrees of the sign, so there's still 21 more degrees to get through of this boundary, this magical container that we're kind of working with. What does a magical boundary or an encouragement to repeat and finesse, to contain, what does that look like in your 4th house of your home and your roots, your ancestry, Sagittarius Rising? Is there something of a magical boundary that you've been enacting over this last bit of time to keep your privacy safe, to keep your thoughts clear and your heart pure and your rest space protected? The moon is very public on your chart. The moon is sort of speaking to the way that people have come to know you, come to know your commitments, your work, your career, your visibility. But Saturn has something of a boundary at home. And I've got to say, I kind of like it. I think it works here. It's good to have the balance, the disparity of public-facing self, private-facing self in good rhythm. You know, we do need a place to retreat when being so visible. Virgo in tarot is the hermit. Virgo has actually taken themselves away from the responsibilities of a social life. They've retracted their energy from being spread around too thinly in order to focus and to learn, to harness in some sense of practical magic. It's kind of a nice feeling to have in the 10th house, you know. It makes me think, obviously because you're a Sagittarius rising, it's a given, but there is something kind of mystical about your work. There's something, I can feel something rhythmic, but there's something that does require some finesse, isn't there? There's something that requires you to separate yourself from others in order to go through the motions and condition. I really like that, Sagittarius rising. So it probably would describe to me, if you're going to be as diligent as a Virgo might be in your practice, then this full moon might be sort of bearing some results. It might be showing us what you've been hiding away for all of these months. Maybe there's something that you can present. That's a nice thing to think about, isn't it? Aquarius is pulling focus at this reading too. 2 days before the full moon, on the 22nd, Mars and Venus will have formed an exact conjunction after they both had to pass through the initiation of Pluto. So we're back to the third house of the goddess, of your village. There's something here in your magical practices. Remember I was talking about that sort of like three-pointed connection, you know, the power of three. There's connection that's happening here in your magic house, your house of private ritual. There's something that kind of feels new as well, not the way that things maybe used to operate before. Pluto is revolutionizing and changing everything in this for you. Revolution is probably the wrong word. That's probably more apt for Taurus. Pluto tends to destroy, tends to reveal things that were hidden. This is telling me a story of reconnection. This is telling me something about a kind of recalibration as far as the magical side of you too, Sagittarius rising. There might be some deep healing work that you've been able to do. There's been some apologies that you've been able to afford your past. It feels connected. It feels passionate. And it probably might be something that you can harness and bring into this work in the 10th house that we've been describing as well. I like it, I like it. Now, obviously, because you are a Sagittarius rising, there will be some pressure in some capacity with your rising sign, with your sort of soul's rising intention, your first house. So we'll just sort of put that where it needs to go. I like this 8 of Pentacles imagery with the moon, though. That does look like, look at that beautiful rehearsal, practice, time and again. Get it right, get it right, get it right. Finesse the rhythm, the craft. It's beautiful that this thing might be ready for you to show as well after all of this work. You know, thinking back to September of last year when we had that moment of seed sowing. It's come to this. It's come to this sort of grand reveal. I like it, Sagittarius rising. I think that there might be a lot of things that you can be proud of at this time. It's okay to be proud of your work from time to time. So enjoy the moment too. Enjoy this moment in your progress. I'm going to get you some tarot and we'll see what else comes out at this time, Sag. The effects of Pluto and Aquarius were quite literal here in the state that I live. The day that Mars entered Pluto as well, entered Aquarius and had to pass by Pluto, there was a huge dry storm. So there was lots of dry lightning, which wreaked havoc on our power systems. And 500,000 homes at one point were without electricity. And thinking about Aquarius and all that that might represent for technological advancement, it kind of went the other way. This Mars and Pluto conjunction was a bit of a power outage, which I found sort of fascinating because there's a lot of focus on the dystopian future of like unknown growth in technological advancement, but really it only takes a moment. You know, if you don't have a generator, you're cut off from the power supply, you're back to Earth, you're back to reality, you're back to where Virgo kind of likes it too. Just something to ponder. Sometimes there's no real way of kind of knowing exactly. I listen to a lot of predictive astrology, but I don't tend to try and study that for myself, in my own practice, too much. It's more about giving oneself context. It's about looking at the lovely mirror that the universe is shining back to us. I'm paraphrasing, but that advice comes from Chani Nicholas. She's got a lovely way with her astrological language, and it's been really informing the way that I approach the work too. Right in the center, we have the Death card. We have Scorpio in a card. We have a moment of rebirth in a card. We have a finite ending and a beginning again. There's a reckoning here, as there is with Scorpio. We know the intensity and the bravery of Scorpios and their ability to face the hidden emotions of our lives. This is a lovely energy to work with in the center. This could be speaking to Pluto and Aquarius in your magical practices. This could be something of a revelation for you insofar as stepping out into this new world as the person that you are now too, Sagittarius Rising. Because there's this incubation period that we were talking about before seems to be coming to a close. It seems to be there's something of a readiness. And perhaps there was maybe a review of your work to this date that you've been through, and now there's a stepping out from this moment. That's not to say that everything that you've ever done is in the can, in the bin, but there is something that feels like a chapter is turning with your work. There feels like there's sort of a new area that you're stepping into, and perhaps almost like you're sort of presenting like a review of this as well. It's sort of like, this is what I've been through to get here. Amazing. I needed to do a lot of soul searching in this process of kind of holding on to the pride of that idea. So many folks live for the moment, you know, the past is in the past, you've got to move forward. This does feel like there was not a reckoning with the past, but definitely a review. And now the page is turned and you're kind of ready to step into the next chapter of your journey. It's powerful. The Death card is a beautiful one, can be very difficult for some folks to look at, so we'll be gentle with that. But what feels new is it's the word rebirth that keeps on coming out. And that's obvious, that's a classic example of the Death card, but in this way it feels really sincere, Sagittarius Rising. There does feel like something has come to its final chapter and you're stepping into something that has tremors of vulnerability about it. It's almost as if you're revealing something about yourself, perhaps behind the mask. That's what I kind of feel with this reading. It feels like there's an invitation, or there's an offering coming from you into your vulnerability, into private areas that perhaps aren't so visible. You know, the 10th house is so visible. It's how you're consumed by the public eye. We're still talking about this house, but you're stepping forward as this sort of watery, vulnerable, truthful, honest version of yourself. Perhaps the work in that finessing that you've been doing has allowed you to really sort of embody the work in a way that you hadn't before, or you're ready for the next, as I said, the next chapter of this story that's got less to do with wearing a mask. It's got less to do with performance, maybe still performance if that's what you're into, but there's a resonance here that's different to the resonance that we were enjoying before. It's a development. And I really like it. It really suits you. So I'd encourage you to keep going. I congratulate you for whatever it is that you're presenting into the world at this time too, Sagittarius Rising. And I look forward to the next chapter. I look forward to who you are and what sides of you you are revealing to everyone coming up. If you're still here with me, Sagittarius Rising, can you put an evil eye in the comments, please? That would be beautiful. I can read your birth chart at umaruby.com. So make an appointment. If I've not seen you before, book a spirit reading, and that includes the drawing that I'll post to you after I've read it to you. If I have read for you before and you'd like to see me again, choose the Back for More tab, and you can pick a magic, truth, growth, love, or spirit, femme reading. You can support my horoscope work at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and put some money in the tip jar there, or you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month. It's very much appreciated. I'll be with you in a little while, 2 weeks maybe, and we'll speak about the Pisces new moon happening on the 10th of March. So in opposition to your most visible, accessible, consumable side, we'll be making some wishes and sowing some further seeds in your privacy, in your connection to your ancestry. I look forward to that. Sagittarius Rising, much love.